Hello YouTubers, welcome back to my channel. So what do you think of my hair? Certainly hides the fact that I can never style my hair in any shape or form. Anyway, so this is the second installment of my grief journey video blog series. I should try not to waffle on for as long as I did last time, but I just wanted to go through what happened in the first maybe a couple of weeks after I heard that my mum died. So, I got the call from my brother saying that she had just passed. And I think initially, you just don't feel anything. I mean, this is obviously just my own experience. Other people will react in the way that they react. And I think that's probably the most important thing when it comes to grief. There's no wrong or right way to react or feel or anything. I think it's very much personal to you. And I just remember I don't think it sank in at all. Obviously I understood what my brother was saying. So I knew she had died. And then I thought, okay, the best thing I can do is just to continue working and then deal with this later. So that's what I did. I mentioned to my boss that my mum had died, and she was obviously quite shocked. And I said that, and she basically said, do you want to take some time off? And I thought, no, I don't want to do that. Why would I want to do that? So I then spent the rest of the day working. And in fact, I haven't taken, other than the funeral and some holiday time, which I had actually booked previously anyway, I haven't actually taken any time off at all in terms of, grieving for my mum. And some people take lots and lots of time off. I decided that wasn't for me. And again, I think that's very, very personal to you and how you feel best, in terms of dealing with the issue. So, that's not to say that I was okay, because clearly I was not. I think I definitely went into shock mode. And for like the first couple of weeks, I would say, definitely the first week, all I basically did was get up, go to the computer, do some work, finish work maybe about 5:30 or so, and then come back here into my bedroom and watch television. And when I mean watch television, I don't mean watching what was on TV. I spent all that time watching one TV series over and over and over again. So for my crimes, I happen to be a fan of Jeremy Clarkson, and he had just released the second series of his program called Clarkson's Farm. So I basically watched that continually on the loop for the first 2 or 3 weeks after my mum died. And I don't know why I did. It was just comforting, I suppose, something I enjoyed. It was funny. I could just get lost into it. And I literally, that's all I did. I got up, did my work, come back to the bedroom, switch the TV on, watch Clarkson's Farm. And I didn't eat very much either. So I think this is also quite a frequent thing. People just don't want to eat, or they eat too much. Either way, very important, of course, to ensure that you're having nutrients and you're looking after yourself, even if you don't feel like it. But what I did do, so I didn't do any cooking at all. But what I did do is that I used this. So I quite often use these sort of products like that, like this anyway. It's a way of getting some nice nutrition into you, particularly first thing in the morning, because I'm not a breakfast eater, but I will drink, protein drink like that. And I had a couple of those per day for a good week or so. I just didn't want, I did do some takeouts as well, but didn't eat very much of it. The very thought of food made me feel quite nauseous. So I had that instead. And I knew it's very important for me to have some calories and some nutrients, which is why I did it. Otherwise, I wouldn't have done that either. And I do think for at least the first week, I was like what I call sub-functional, as it were. And I think one of the worst things, when you're first dealing with a death, is, you know, the fact that so much expected of you. You know, I mean, you know, I was here in Germany and my mum died in the UK, and I did, you know, as I say, I have my brother in the UK. And, you know, he had to do a lot of the physical stuff, like, you know, register the death. And then there was some form that you could fill in to tell, you know, various government departments and stuff. So, you know, things like her pension was stopped and all that kind of stuff. So I did the filling in of that form because I could do that. I also contacted the funeral home that we decided on because it was easy for me to do that filling in the form, and they talked to me over the phone, and my brother did certain other things. He went to the bank, mum's bank, to sort out her finances that way, you know, make sure the bank account was frozen. And we wanted to make sure that there was also enough money in there to pay for funeral expenses, etc. And there was just so much to do, you know, or it just felt like there was so much to do, particularly in terms of sorting out the funeral, that, and it just felt exhausting, you know. You're at a time where you're, I mean, particularly in my case, I don't know how my brother felt, but, you know, at a time where you're definitely not functioning as you should, you know. You know, you're at a time, I mean, I remember those first couple of weeks thinking, this is far too daunting for me. I'm meant to be spending the next 30 odd years of my life without, you know, arguably the most central person in it, you know, so how am I meant to do this? You know, and it sounded very scary, and it felt very scary and daunting and almost suffocatingly impossible to imagine. And yet at the same time, at the back of the mind, you have to sort out all this practical stuff. So there's that, you know, and I think, you know, as I mentioned in my previous video, you know, excellent business opportunity. I'll give you 500 quid. Please sort out all this crap and I'll just come to the funeral. So, I mean, I do remember, not the first Sunday. I have a very good friend here in Germany who basically got me out of the flat. We went to see a photo exhibition that was very nice, and we ate somewhere. So I actually ate a burger that day. Not all of it, but I do remember eating some solid food that day. And then I think the following week, I mean, quite what I normally do at the weekend, because I'm a bit of a foodie, I'll go out and I'll find a nice place to eat. And I had actually booked somewhere for that week. And was it the following day? It might have been the following day after the photo exhibition. Yes, photo exhibition, and the following day I was going, yeah, so it was actually the first week, so 4 days after Mum's death. I went to this place, and I've been to this place many times before. It's a very nice German place. And that was a serious mistake because I was just incredibly emotional throughout. I didn't really want to eat any of it. And yeah, it was just too early, you know, because I was still in shock. And I think, you know, for me, I didn't want to feel in shock. I didn't want to feel that this catastrophe had just arrived and I was having to cope with all these emotions. I wanted to cling on to things that were normal. And I think that's why I continue to go to work, because work felt like a normal activity. You know, and I think if I hadn't have done that, I think I'd have been a lot worse off, because I would have just sat watching Clarkson's Farm and things going on in my head. I mean, you know, I suppose there's always a danger, always an argument that perhaps you were blocking things out, but I don't think so in my case. You know, I mean, obviously, I think that the mind goes into shock because it's protecting you from the full impact of what's happened. You know, so you only, you know, I think your mind, you know, only gives you as much that you can cope with. You know, so you can't quite cope with the full enormity of what's going on right now. So I'm just giving you as much as you can cope with at the present time. And I think that's important, you know, and I mean, some people will just like collapse and, you know, and that's how they deal with it, and that's totally fine. And I think other people will allow them to grieve for certain periods of time. And then, okay, I've done that bit for the day. Let's get distracted by other things. And I think that's what I did. And I think that's a healthy way of doing it, because you're not, or at least it was for me, because you're not blocking out the issue. You're not blocking out the impact and the emotions that come with that. But at the same time, you know, you know, if you can't cope with having that constantly in your mind, then that you know, you can, you know, obviously maintain some normality. So that's how I did it for the first couple of weeks. And then, of course, I'll mention the funeral in my next installment and how I felt about that. You know, I mean, what I'll say right now is a very humbling experience for a number of reasons. Thank you very much for watching, and I will release these, you know, once a week. Hopefully, you know, you'll find them useful. You know, if you come across this series at any point and you tell me it's useful or not useful, or perhaps you can you know, you can emphasize with what I'm saying, it'll be really nice to hear from you. I mean, obviously, you know, nobody wants to be in the position when they're, you know, when they're grieving them a loved one. But you know, it's a shared experience. It's something that every single person is likely to encounter at some point. So hope it, you know, hope it resonates in some way. Right, thanks again, and I will see you all again soon.